O'clock. It's Chakra Talk. I'm back. I had a brief holiday over at the coast and it was fantastic. But today I'm excited to talk to you about something that is huge to me. And it's huge to a lot of people around the world, and it has a lot of controversy with it. Today we're going to talk about shamanism. And of course, what that has to do with chakras. This is Chakra Talk Live. I'm Piper. I run a group called Chakra Talk on Facebook. And I run a business here in Salem, Oregon, called Marinsky's Magic. If you go to Chakra Talk on my page and you push one more button, you can get to Marinsky's Magic and see what all the events are locally here. Tonight, here at the house, we have JoJo's the Movie, which we do once a month. And tonight, we're going to be watching Michael Harner and his wife, Sandra, talk about shamanism. So it seemed like a perfect time for me to bring up this morning my talk about shamanism and what the hell that has to do with chakras. I've told you that everything I do with this business, my spirituality is all about chakras. That is my understanding of the world, both in the physical and the non-physical. And that's one of the beautiful things about chakras is it covers the whole works. I don't have to say, well, that works as long as I'm human or that works as long as I'm not human. It's all chakras. You'll often hear me comparing a lot of different things and saying, what does that have to do with chakras? I present a class on Buddhism, and it's Buddhism and what it has to do with chakras. It has nothing to do with the history of Buddhism or the religion of, however many billions of people it is. It has to do with reaching the Ascended Master, Prince Gautama, and talking with him and having him talk with me and living in that adaptive relationship that we get. And we've talked about that a little bit and talking about what Buddhism is and how it relates to living in the real world today. See, that seems to be a big topic. Buddhism, it's about chakras. Okay. Shamanism is the same way. Shamanism is a really big topic and has a lot of controversy around the world. The controversy is caused by tradition. People hold on to traditions and the thoughts of what they're holding on to in very good ways. With tradition is usually about respect and wanting to prolong the information, wanting to share that information so it doesn't get lost along the way. In earlier times, which I've traveled a lot and spent a lot of time back there, they didn't write everything down. It wasn't practical. They either when it got to the point where there was things to write with, it was very, very expensive. So that was related to scholarly works or religious works. And, that you had all these people who were writing and translating. It went from this book and somebody wrote it into this book. And you know how that is with humans doing things. There's going to be errors and changes along the way. So a lot of the traditional passing on of information that came long before writing was person to person. And shamanism is very much that way. I've talked to you all, and you all know I travel around with this 6,000-year-old grandma. She is actually pre-shamanism, but she is the basis. If I go back with grandma and I break her down, in just a second, I'm drinking coffee. What a surprise. If I go back with my grandma 6,000 years ago and I work with her specifically and we take a look at what happened maybe 4,000 or 5,000 years ago, I can see where she had a lot of influence on what came about in the world. In the region of Mongolia, shamanism is the core religion, if you will, although I don't know how in the world you could call that a religion. It's a methodology for communication. That's it. That's what shamanism is. It's a methodology for communication with the non-physical. And for having the intention, the will, the power, the whatever to receive and accept that information. Certainly, of course, that involves the third eye as a chakra that we've talked about. That's the portal allowing that information in and allowing you to accept it, interpret it, bring it into something that this thing can tolerate without blowing the mind. But shamanism is a lot about tradition. They've done it this way for as long as they've been talking and writing things down. Okay, so you understand how important that is to some folks to keep that traditional thing But in my world, it's almost like doing that, the tradition becomes more important than the functionality of the ism, shamanism, Buddhism, whatever it is. And the folks I work with who are ascended masters, who've had something to do with this stuff down here, I work specifically with the ascended masters of the earth realm. There may be others in other places, but I'm not currently engaged with them. So the folks I work with, you may likely know. I've talked about a lot of them, and you do know them. You don't know Grandma because she wasn't written down in a book like Buddha or Jesus or anybody else that I may have mentioned. She was before they started doing that. Her traditions, her knowledge was passed down just like this. She told somebody about it, and they told somebody else. Well, because Grandma is one of my own past lives, I have all that information. That's interesting. So I work with the ascended masters all the time, and I think of Grandma that way, but in reality, I was Grandma. I lived that life here on the planet. So it's a different access point. I'm accessing her through old knowledge. But it's not like she's going to come back because I'm already here back. So that gets kind of tricky. Anyway, let's get back to shamanism. So shamanism, if you ask people all around the world what it is, some people will tell you it is a very specific religious practice having to do with the trance state. Okay, I'll give you that. It certainly is. I don't know about the religious word, but anything that gets in a big group and has to do with anything non-physical becomes religion. I don't have another word for it, so why not? Okay, but shamanism is running all over the world. There's shaman all over the world who are not following the traditional methods, myself being included. One thing about shamanism is I don't ever identify myself as a shaman, but the fact that I work with the non-spiritual or non-physical, and the non-physical says to me that this is what you're doing. Well, I work with them. I take what they tell me. People see the way that I work sometimes and say, oh, that's shamanism. It's also very closely related to what you might know as animism, working with power animals, also working and communicating with live animals. It also goes back, if you go all the way back to Mongolia, to something called Tengurism. I don't know how many of you have ever heard of Tengurism. You see how many isms there are? Everything that's got a little ism on the end of it means somebody's wrapped it up and put it in a box. And you know I don't do boxes. Okay. So my encounters with understanding shamanism come from two very specific places. Number one, I've told you all I had one human teacher in this whole business, and that was necessary. That one person gave me one tool that I did not have, and that was the ability to journey into the non-physical. That was my teacher, Marion Simon. She taught me the Michael Harner method for journeying, and I went and found my reindeer. Smelliest old guy, and he still smells. I have olfactory spiritual experiences at times. I frequently smell things that are not in my present physical environment. That reindeer being one of them. I smelled him before I saw him. In my journey, I was like, what is that stench? And then there's this magnificent animal presenting itself to me, for my use. Okay, that is shamanism. That is the ability to get, give, receive, and accept information from the non-physical in a trance state. Okay. Well, if I go and I talk about different religions, different isms around the world, you'll find that most of them have some method of inducing a trance state. Why do they all do that if it's shamanism? Why do Buddhists go into meditation sometimes for hours and hours and hours and hours to have that same experience? I posted some videos on the music thing today on Chakra Talk from YouTube. Just before I do this, I always come on and put a couple pieces of music or something that has something to do with what we're talking about. And one of them that I posted today is the Whirling Dervishes. That's a Muslim thing that's done in Turkey. The video I posted is a beautiful one. It's made by UNESCO, so it's very beautifully presented and professional. And this is how they induce trance state. They do this to honor Allah. Allah, God, source, non-physical. Okay, we're all talking about the same thing regardless of what we call it. I've had the unique experience of speaking to traditional shaman all over the world because of a Facebook group that I created and that I ran for a year, and then I gave it up. It's still in existence. It's called Shaman's Exchange. I created that group with the specific thing of talking to people who practice shamanism and call it that all around the world. It brought me to some pretty intense folks who have some very strong feelings about tradition. Some of you may have encountered, if you have an interest in shamanism, some of you may have encountered the magazine called Sacred Hoop. It's been around, 150 issues, however many years that is, something like that. Well, the gentleman who's always written that and done it is Nicholas Breezewood. And I spent a year talking to him off and on Facebook. He lives, I think, in southern Wales. And he'd love it if you'd come look him up and look at his magazine, because I mentioned him here today. But the interesting thing is, the name of his magazine about shamanism is The Sacred Hoop. That wording, the Sacred Hoop, comes from my friend Black Elk. That's what he calls this life thing, the Sacred Hoop. The constant spinning, we constantly in and out of the hoop. Okay. Black Elk knows now that he's where he is, that you can get out of the hoop. But at the time, he was thinking it was a continual, permanent thing. Okay, so there we have the Native American Black Elk who lived until 1950. And I have my friend in Wales, Nicholas Breezewood, who is very, very traditional shamanism and publishes the world's best known shamanism magazine, the only one that I know. I mean, and the stuff in it is absolutely fantastic. You want to know about traditional stuff in that other part of the world, go read the magazine. It's amazing. Beautiful pictures, photographs, everything, but it's traditional shamanism. Okay. It has a topic. Okay. So that it's a limited venue. It is what it is. It's about traditional shamanism. And he presents that in the most beautiful way possible. But I find that limiting. Traditional shamanism would say that there's no way I'm a shaman. I'm a white lady in the USA who's had no kind of training, no traditional training of any kind, not even the kind they offer here in the United States, with the exception of those very couple of little things that I got from Barry and Simon to teach me how to journey. Okay? But I do all of this very effectively. So obviously there's other ways to do this than by the rule book. I find they keep the rule book in the box, and I don't really use either one of those. They also have a recipe book in there. I don't use that either. So what I want to talk to you a little bit about, one of the things that I posted today was 3 different versions of the music or the movement of how people induce trance. And so the question, a very valid question, why you want to be in a trance? Well, what the shamanistic community would call being in trance is what I would call having the crown offline, allowing the third eye to do what it does, and living through the heart. Okay, that's the chakra explanation of this. The crown is offline. You are seeing a different world than the one the crown can process through your eyeballs. Okay, I have come. Joe and I went to the coast for his birthday, and it was fantastic. Let me tell you, the coho where we went was beautiful, but wait, because right now it's under construction. That's why we got it for a great, great price. Looking right out over the ocean, full window, the ocean just right there. But it was kind of noisy. They had construction people in and out of there. We had a wonderful time because we were just there to sleep and stay in for the night, so they had quit. But if you're going over there for several days, it's kind of a mess right now. They said it'll be done before summer, and then we're going back. It's magnificent. Anyway, we are in this big giant picture window, and we're both kind of meditating and trancy, and we're feeling great, and things are wonderful. And the ocean has that intense experience on me anyway. I get very trance-like just being in communication with Mother. So we're sitting here on the third floor, high tide's in, the ocean is going in, so there's a lot of movement in the water, and we're sitting here, and my sweetie's sitting next to me, and he says, "Wow, look at that." I said, "What are you looking at?" Because it appears he's looking there at the ocean. He says, "There's like desert islands out there, and there's a tree growing, but it doesn't have any leaves. Look at that, it grew leaves." Okay. So he has entered into a trance state. We've been talking about this since this occurred, and we've been trying to figure out exactly what happened. Here's your answer, sweetheart. You entered into a trance state so that you were able to view something besides what your physical eyes and brain can process. Anyway, this went on for 2 or 3 hours. We sat by this giant window watching this waves, and it was dark, but it was fascinating, and there's no moon. We're just a couple days past the new moon, so it's just this little sliver. But we happened to be on one of the few beaches in Lincoln City that was lit all night, and it was lit from a light way up above us. So it was really just reflecting down on a portion of the beach and on the water. And it was really neat. Kooky? No, because he did this and then it just morphed. He just kept watching it change and change. So it went from being a desert, it went to the Grand Canyon or a similar canyon. Kooky, come here. It went to being a golf course. He's like, look at the beautiful greens. And he was seeing all of this in a physical form in front of him, when we know from our own personal knowledge, he and I both, that that's not what was out there. He was looking at canyons and valleys and hills and rivers in real time right there, while I was looking at Mother Pacific right there. Our physical eyes were viewing the same thing. He was in a trance state. He was seeing something else. So what is that? What is that trance state? Now, with you, if you're in trance state with your eyes open like he was, guess what? That's called a visual hallucination. Okay? And he, like I said, he did this for 2 or 3 hours, and it was fascinating to him, and it was fascinating to watch him. And he's still kind of carried away by it because it's an experience, he said, that was more precise and visual and exact than he's had before. And Joe's autistic, so he thinks in pictures anyway. And he said the pictures were sharp as could be, even though I'm sitting right beside him looking at the ocean, and he's seeing a golf course, or he's seeing a canyon, or he's seeing rivers running this way and that, and he's telling me all the things he's seeing out there. And I can look out there, and I can kind of go, well, maybe that's what it, maybe that, but I'm not in this trance. I'm just sitting beside him in this magnificent state of joy at being there by Mother and by him and enjoying it. We were staying up till midnight because that was his birthday, you know. It was fantastic, but he was in trance. Okay. And he said to me, well, this would be very inconvenient if you couldn't turn it off. And I said, that is the definition of schizophrenia. They can't turn it off at will. And he said that night, he said, I don't know if I could turn this off, but he could. All you had to do is flip the light on, changes the perception, you're done. Trance is gone. To maintain that trance state, see, we were sitting in a hotel room, all the lights off completely, no lights at all. We were looking out a window, no sound on. We don't do TV, radio, all that stuff. None of that, silence. We're looking out at the ocean, which looks to be underneath us because we can't see the beach from where we're on the third floor unless we get up and look out the window because tide was coming in. But that is what occurred. He went into a trance state, a voluntary trance state with a very high vibration. So this is occurring as I'm speaking to you. This is clarifying in my mind. So the trance state, I've talked about this many times because I run through life with these 3 gates wide open. So I see many things that other people don't see, but I don't tell you about them. unless I'm purposefully talking to you about what's occurring. And I've told you before, I have every symptom that they would call schizophrenia here in this country, including living my life and acting and making decisions based on these voices. But these voices don't lead me wrong, you see. I understand the reality that the voices are actual energy, just the same as this is actual energy, in fact, more consistent. We've talked about that. All this physical stuff changes and goes away. It changes on a day-to-day basis. They don't change. They are what they are. And I have access to them. And even though I change, they don't change. So I know that that's more real than this. Or I know that it's more, we won't say more real. What if I say it is more persistent? Okay, because it's all real. This is reality. Whatever it is, this is it. Okay, so I want to talk to you a little bit about the specifics of trying to induce that state. So when I first learned this from Marion Simon, what we did is we sat with drums. And in this one, because we were beginners and because drumming requires energy and concentration, we didn't drum for ourselves. She drummed for us. So for like 20 minutes at a time, she would beat this drum, beat it very hard, very loud, and very consistent. Boom, 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 boom. Like the one video that I posted of 15 minutes of drumming. That's a great video, by the way, if you want to try this on your own. It's just 15 minutes of drumming, no other background sound, no explanation, nothing, and that's why I posted it. And it is from the Michael Harner people. It's at the right frequency and everything. They want to induce the theta state. Okay, theta state to me is still brain stuff, and I'm way beyond working with this in the brain. But the beat of it has been designated that that's where that correlates with that part of the brain. Okay, so she beat this drum, but as she was beating the drum, prior to starting the beating, she had given us an assignment. Basically, she said, "We're going to go on a journey. You're going to find an entrance into the earth." And you're going to go down. Okay, she had placed that information into my awareness. And that was about it. And I had no idea how this was going to occur. And I was not familiar with shamanism or journeying or anything else. And so she says, "I'm going to start beating this drum. You just listen to the drum. Don't think about what I told you to do. Just listen to the drum and let it occur. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. If it does happen, it won't be because you thought your way to it." She says, "Forget about what I told you. I've told you now. You know what you're doing. Listen to the drum." And so boom, 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 boom. 20 minutes of this. Okay. And you do enter into this altered state, what people call trance. Okay. But what occurred when I entered into that altered state is there, in a room, in a building, I was presented with Mother Pacific, a view of the ocean. In this view of the ocean, there was a whirlpool going round and round and round. And obviously down somewhere. It's the ocean. You don't know, it's just going down. And I knew to go into that. So as I'm in this state, she's still drumming. I'm not really understanding what's happening, but I see this whirlpool in front of me. I see this ocean, so I just dive right in head first. And sure enough, that begins my first journey. That is journeying. It is going somewhere that your body is not going. There's a whole lot of information out there on the internet about OBEs, out-of-body experience. But a lot of people limit that to what they're actually talking about is astral projection, which is taking a little bit of this energy and pushing it over there so it can appear to be two bodies at the same time, even though one of them's not very substantial. Okay, that's not what this is. This is my body laying on a thing in a room with a blanket on, listening to a drum. And I left it there and I went down this thing. Okay, do you see I and the body? I'm describing those as two separate things. The body was kept warm, covered, comfortable, listening to a drum. I left the body and I went down the whirlpool. When I went down that whirlpool, I landed on my feet in a place that seemed as solid as that. It seemed solid. I was standing there. I was smelling that stench, and this deer walks into my view. Not any deer, a reindeer. Okay, understand, this is a reindeer. A very odd thing. You don't see a reindeer every day. Donner and Blitzen, what? A reindeer. If you live in other parts of the world, you may know this as a caribou. That's the same animal. My understanding from visiting Alaska is if it's wild, it's caribou. If it's domesticated, they call it a reindeer. It's the same animal, same species. Okay, that's the animal I'm talking about. This is a massive animal. And it just stood there and looked at me. And it was as real as that chihuahua laying right over there. And it stunk. And that was real. I reached out and touched it. There's an animal there. I got on his back. There was an animal between my legs. I had a physical sensation of sitting on a massive, large, sweaty reindeer that didn't smell too good. And as I accepted that, and I there's no saddle, of course, or anything, so I'm grabbing his fur, his hair, and he takes off. He takes off running. So I'm on this journey, and I'm riding this reindeer I just met, and he runs, and he runs, and he runs, and he runs, and he runs towards a cave, and he takes me, and he drops me outside a cavern, a cave, and I say drops me. I was on him and we were riding, and then he was standing beside me again, and I was sitting at the cave. Well, this is the entrance to the crystal caverns. And if you've ever done any shamanic work, the crystal caverns are a place of absolute healing power. They're multicolored, like chakras. And most anybody can reach them. That's what's called in the Harner tradition, Michael Harner core shamanism, at the lower world journey. Okay, and I'm not real good at this stuff because I don't use those terms or stuff anymore, and I didn't go through and investigate and learn all their stuff. I saw that I could get somewhere besides here with full awareness, and that I could come back here and bring that information, man, and I was off. That was all it took. I realized the non-physical is absolutely as real as what we see right here, or in my awareness now, it's more real, but we'll go with as real. And I think I went with her one other time into a different class setting, and we did a journey to the ancestors, I think it was. And I found Grandma. I found Grandma, my 6,000-year-old Siberian shaman, pre-shamanism woman. And I had an encounter with my grandmother, my German Apache grandmother from Texas, who was my actual living grandmother. And I came out of that journey, that knowing, not believing, not thinking, not accepting, knowing that world is as real as this one. And that there is so much going on in that world that we just have no awareness of. And after years of doing this, I spend a lot more time there than I do here. And I don't miss anything here. The interesting part is, what I found was a lot of the time I was spending here was just that. I was just spending the time. I was just letting the time go by. I wasn't really accomplishing anything. We do that sometimes. In fact, sometimes we do that for many lifetimes, over and over and over. We just let things go, and we don't ever try to work on anything or figure out anything. One of the things I said when I wrote the book, Do We Exist? I said, and I'll say it here, it might be adequate as well. I said, if you're perfectly happy believing you have a guardian in the sky and that he's going to decide when you die that you go to heaven or hell and you're good, then you probably don't want to listen to me, because I may knock you off of that certainty. And I'm not trying to. I'm just telling you what happened to me. But when a person tells you something that happened to them that you didn't know could happen, it kind of makes you go, huh? Well, maybe not, whatever. Depending on how strong your belief system is, it may not jar you at all. But realize if it doesn't jar you at all to get new information, then you are locked into a belief system, what I call a box. So we went on this journey, and I found my reindeer. And we went on the second journey, and reindeer went with me, and we found Grandma. Okay, since Grandma and reindeer have been with me, I have never ever had to have any more assistance in journeying. And I've changed that word to traveling, because I sometimes, a journey to me sounds like you have a place to go, like you have a specific place to go, a journey from here to there. And I don't always do that. Sometimes I open myself up for off-world travel, and I don't know where I'm going, but I go anyway. And so that's why I don't call it journeying anymore. I just say I'm traveling. And it's not at all uncommon for me to appear to be in the living room asleep in the recliner, covered up usually, because I learned that the body does get cold when you leave it. Excuse me, but I'm often not there. And when I'm not there, I'm not out on some mystical, let's reword that. When I'm not in my body, I'm still aware of what I'm doing and where I'm doing it. And I never even think. See, I don't use the word I anymore the way I used to. When I said I'm going to the store, what I meant was this body's going to get up and go outside and get in the car and go to the grocery store. Okay. Now, if I say I'm going to the store, well, I'm going to go to the store. This body may, in fact, go, or it may not. But I wouldn't say that anymore. I just don't say that. I don't speak that way. I very seldom refer to this thing as I anymore. You may hear me call it the Piper thing, the vehicle, this thing I'm driving. Often you'll hear me say this thing. That's because I have a complete and firm understanding that I'm not encased within it. You see the little jokes all the time. I posted one a couple days on Facebook. It's very cute. Shows a little alien girl standing there pulling on a human mask. Well, call it alien, call it whatever you are, whatever this is, it's a mask. It's a mask over the energy. Remember, we've talked about the big energy and the little filtered energy. Well, the little filtered energy all has a mask on. We all have these things. That doesn't mean we're any different than the big energy, but it means we're behind a mask. We're doing this right now. Well, I've come to the conclusion after all my years of working with this that you can lay the mask over on the desk and go do something else for a while and come back and put it on. And I find that very useful for very specific reasons. I am personally on my last go around here, and I'm fully aware of that. I'm reincorporating all my last lives. This is a wrap up. And that's why I'm doing this with you. This is not my inclination ever to be in the place of attention. That's just not the way I've ever lived my life. When you're not in the box, you don't really care that people don't think about you in the box. Y'all just stay in your box. I'm happy with that. I'll just be out here where it's quieter. Okay. So sharing this stuff with you is a mandate. This is something I am required to do to finish this. And I'm okay with that because it's happening quite naturally, but this is not who I was 5 years ago. The reason this is not who I was 5 years ago is because 5 years ago, I had a fractured soul. There were 5 of me, 2 of them with a lot of influence and power, the others very, very young children. So emotional inconsistencies in my adult life. Those have all been recovered, repaired, allowed to grow and mature. And I'm one single individual personality now, as opposed to basically it was a 3 split that the others were too young to affect much. I'm not the same person because I function at a much higher vibration than I did 5 years ago. 5 years ago, I had no idea this stuff even existed. 10 years ago, I would have told you were batshit crazy and get away from me. Or come on in, let's take a look at your med list. You see, people change. They change a lot. That out there doesn't change. That tells me that out there is more consistent than this. life and death, we all know that when we, as soon as we are aware, that this is you're growing, an infant doesn't come here perhaps aware that they're here with a death sentence, but we are all born with one. We all leave here in the same condition. Everybody dies of cardiac arrest. No matter what causes it, the heart stops, the body quits. Even when they keep you alive on machines for a while, they can pump blood all over your body for a while, and do all that stuff. But if they turn the machines off, heart stops, body quits, you're not in there anymore. Frequently, the people laying there on those machines aren't in there anymore. The machines are running a mechanical set of responses through a carbon and water bag. Hi guys, I see I have a few people here with me today. We're kind of on one of those rambling talks about shamanism and how it goes with chakras and how everything goes with chakras, and it's all the same thing. The real point I want to make about shamanism is that you have a choice in doing this. You can use it to do what you want to do, what I would call manifesting my life and healing my body and assisting others to heal their bodies and all kinds of stuff. Or you can look at it as another ism and treat it as something traditional. I claim myself now to be a Buddhist. Because that's the path I follow. But I have had no traditional training on Buddhism. I know quite a bit about it because I worked with the Ascended Master Prince Gautama, and what he looks out here and sees is that's not what I said. That's not what I meant. I didn't intend for people to be play acting and suffering and putting up gold statues of me all over the world. He told me once if I had a foot, I'd kick over every goddamn statue. But he don't have a foot. He's just information in a data stream now. So if you have some draw to study traditional shamanism, understand that you will be studying history, the history of shamanism. If you have a draw to practice shamanism, and if you happen to be in the United States, there's a fairly extensive network, Foundation for Shamanic Practice, and they can hook you in with teachers and guides and journey guides all over the United States by city. People have registered with this. Society for Shamanic Practice, I believe, is the Harner folks. And then you just type that in and put in what city you're in, and they'll give you a list of people who have given their names to them and completed their courses and have certificates and all that stuff. Okay, don't come to me looking for a certificate in shamanism because I don't have one. Nor do I have a certificate in Buddhism, nor do I have a certificate in Reiki. And yet I practice all those things with really precise efficiency. So you see, the reality of the energy is not about these certificates. The reality of the energy is not that person over there said I was qualified to do this, and they wrote my name on that paper, so now I can do this. I've known a lot of nurses, lots, and I've known a few, very few actually, but a couple who had a nursing license just like mine, and they were scary. They were not competent. They did not know what they were doing. They were not safe to be putting chemicals in other people, but they got that certificate. One of the things in nursing school that's kind of an inside joke is when we get out of here, the C students are going to get paid the same as the A students. Why are you busting your ass? Well, because busting your ass, engaging in what you're doing the best you can right now, that seemed important to me. And as it turned out, I was a really good nurse. I don't like that anymore, and I don't do that anymore, but when I did it thoroughly. That's kind of like what I do right now. Right now, what I do is this, and I engage in it fully. I completely understand that there's no human being inside this thing. I have an absolute experience, not even just an awareness. I have experience of myself, non-physical, on the other side, setting up, getting ready to come home. It's not heaven or hell, it's a laboratory. So you see, shamanism to me is quite a limiting concept if you look at it historically. If you don't look at it historically and you use it to your highest use and your own travel and your own journey, whatever, your own finding your resources connecting to the non-physical, well, that's fantastic. Call it whatever you want. All those things that I do under the title chakra alignment. But it's no different than what a shaman would do. It's no different than what a Buddhist monk would do. It's no different than old-timey Siberian witchcraft. Did you know witchcraft came from Siberia? Interesting. It's interesting when you look back at human history. We all came from everything together. The book I wrote, Whitebird Sings, is 11,000 years of me traveling outside this body. And a lot of that information had not been written down before. 11,000 years ago in Siberia, the reindeer herders weren't keeping diaries of what was going on every day. They were trying to not freeze to death and not starve to death. And I've had the amazing privilege and honor to go there and sit in their community tent by the fire when it's, I don't know, blizzarding outside. Who knows how cold it was. It's way below zero, colder than anything we ever have here. I have memories of that, just like I have memories that when I go in there in the living room, I can pull the thing up close to the fire and warm my feet. You see, those memories are not attached to this body. And no memories are. That's the thing. We think that we have, I've talked about your own personal Akashic record. Well, that's still non-physical. Your memory attached to this body is muscle memory and instinct. And that's to keep this body alive. That's what it does. The person who's driving the body and deciding where it goes or feel like they're deciding where it goes, that person's not affected by whatever happens to this body. You just go back and you come back and you get a new body. Your Toyota wears out, you throw it away and you go get a Honda. Having been doing this now and having memories that track me along for this 11,262 years, approximately, they say, I don't know how much closer it could get, at the end of the last Pleistocene era, at the end of the last ice age, just coming into this warm time. But I have those memories, and those memories are as real to me as the memories I have of going to the swimming pool this morning. That's because the memory of the swimming pool is not real either. You see, there's the rub. I'm saying, well, my off-world memories are just as reliable as these. These memories here on this planet are not all that reliable. How many times have you been absolutely sure that you set your purse on the counter? You'd argue with somebody about it. Damn it, that's where I put it. What happened to it? You left it in the front seat of the car. You mean I remembered that incorrectly? Well, we trust those memories and we run our lives by them. That's my whole business of thoughts about thoughts. Unless you're living in a 30-second slice right here, right now, you're running your life on thoughts about thoughts. Whether they're future thoughts or past thoughts does not matter. They are not here. They are non-existent at this moment. You are accessing them through the Akashic record. We've talked about all that. I'm still working on that damn book, Thoughts About Thoughts. I don't know when it's ever going to get done. It just keeps... Maybe I should quit thinking about it and just be done with it. Just say, okay, I'm done thinking. This is the last page. But I haven't done that yet. So I don't have much to do with writing these books. To be honest, I write them and I publish them, and then I go back and read them and go, wow, wonder who wrote that. That was good. It happens a lot. The answer is the body wrote it while I was or wasn't paying attention, whatever. So you see, the body's here doing what the body does. And sometimes it seems to be inhabited by Piper. And sometimes it's very clear that it's not. But Piper remains the same either way. The Piper energy, which actually at this moment, I more identify myself as Jeffrey than any other of my current or former lives, simply because he's the first, and he is at this point still the most powerful, and he is the one guiding me home. So right now, if you caught me off guard and somebody asked me my name, it wouldn't be out of the realm for me to say I'm Jeffrey. Piper. Okay. Jeffrey was from Africa 11,000 years ago. The memories are just exactly as clear as being at the pool this morning and washing my hair. You see, they're not any more real or unreal than anything I'm experiencing here as a human being. So if you have some idea about, we'll go back to the isms, and the two biggies I'm using for examples are both really important to this thing and to the current life this thing is living. That's shamanism and Buddhism. But those are huge, massive groups of people with rules and regulations and traditions. And there's a sense in traditional communities that doing anything outside of the tradition is disrespectful. Well, that's all thoughts about thoughts. That's all thoughts about thoughts. I have no disrespect for anyone who was a reindeer herder in Siberia 11,000 years ago, whether it was me or someone else. I have no respect. To me is an odd one. That's a weird word now, and it's like pride. I don't even know what that means, because I've kind of gotten away from quite so much of that. Even the little bit of society fit in the box that I had, because I had a professional career and I had to work with people. Well, I don't do that anymore, so I'm as far out of the box as I was. I'm that much further again. It's just my journey here. My life is not bringing me to society, it's taking me away from it, and that is fine with me. I've done society. I know what that's like. This thing has driven for 35 years in an uncomfortable marriage, for 30 years in a high demand career. I know how to do all that. I'm doing something else now. And this thing that I'm doing now relies greatly on my knowledge, not my beliefs, but my absolute knowing of the methodologies, we'll say, of Buddhism and shamanism. And if you want to really get back to the technical, the closest thing to what I practice as an overall thing is Tangerism. But again, they're locked into their traditions. So we are doing a movie tonight here, and I think it's called The Way of the Shaman, or The Shaman's Way. It's Michael Harner and his wife Sandra. So that's what we'll actually be discussing and talking about here this evening at the house too. And the reason we're doing that, with me sitting here telling you I don't do that, I don't stay in the box, well, we have other people here in our group. We provide groups here, and some of them are interested in entering shamanism. They want to look at it as a possible methodology for them to use. And so this is an introductory place. So understand, when I say shamanism, Tangerism, Buddhism, it's all chakras, well, it is, but you don't hand a kindergartner a college dictionary and say it's all in there. You hand them See Sally Run, and you start there. A very good place to start any kind of life of practicing travel, journeying, is with what is now known in this country as core shamanism. My understanding, and I did very little research, but I did do a little, simply because I needed to understand how it came about so I could tell other people. Core shamanism came about because someone went and visited many shamanic communities around the world not just Siberia, but all over South America, Africa, all kinds of places. And they went to the people who were shaman or medicine men. And they all had some core beliefs and practices. And then I believe Michael Harner took all of that and developed what in the United States is called core shamanism. The core practices, the core belief systems, the core methodologies to induce that trance state and get to that information. That's really all anything non-physical is getting to information. The only thing physical you've got is this little thing that's happening right now. And we can't do anything with that because, well, we just can't. You can't, by the time I can say it, it's done and over. Time is progressing in nanoseconds and we're experiencing it in minutes. So, something that's occurred 300 times that we have no awareness of is really not of much use to us. So the things you can be aware of, the things you can get a grip on and get into a human timing that you can live in, inducing a trance state by affecting your brain waves is a very good way to do that. That's drumming. The whirling dervishes that I put up the video of, they do it with motion. And if you'll notice, when they get their skirts going, they look very much like chakras, except they're white. But the shape is what I see when I look out and see another person spinning in front of me, when I see another piece of filtered energy. Okay, so what could possibly be the benefit of being able to induce yourself into this trance state? If you're perfectly happy right here, right now, you've got everything you need, or you believe you can't get anything else, you don't, whatever. If you are in a place where this world is enough for you, then there is no practical use for this. But a lot of us in this world at this time, particularly since the shift in 2012, are coming to a point where we're going, no, I ain't buying that anymore. I want to know what's actually going on here. And that's what happened with me. April 26, 2014, I turned around to those fucking screaming voices in my head and I said, what do you want? You won't leave me alone. I'm dying. I'm fucking crazy. What do you want? It can't be any worse than this. And the screamers backed up immediately and a very quiet and calm voice said, we're here to help. That wasn't what I expected. 5 years later, almost 5 years coming up this April, here I sit in front of you, healthy as can be, healthier than I've ever been. I have an absolute and complete understanding of the function of the universe, what it is doing, what it is not doing. I have no questions. I have no fears of going to the other side. I have no worries about the day that I depart this body and don't return, and it's called dead. Make me no difference. When I'm done with it, I'm done with it. When the Toyota dies, it can go to the junkyard. I'll go get the Honda. Okay? You see, there's a benefit to it if you have something you want to do other than just do the things that we do in society all day, every day. I got to a point pretty early in my life where I didn't believe anything anybody told me. And there was good reason for that. I was lied to a lot. And in some cases lied to the point that my safety was compromised by my own parents. Parents being mother and numerous stepfathers or along the way. My dad had nothing to do with it. He was already gone. But if you've got a life where you really would like to know that there's something else going on, you have images, you have nudges, you have ideas, you just have curiosity. What the hell is going to happen when we leave here? I find it so interesting. If you bring up talking about practicing dying before you die, a death meditation, people are like, oh my God, you're weird. Shit, we practice everything. We practice for everything we're going to do here on this planet, except the one thing that we're all going to do, and that's die. Why would you not practice if you can come up with a way to do it? Well, the Buddhists have come up with a way to do it. Shamanism has come up with a way to do it. We connect to the non-physical and go see what it's about. Because that's all dying is getting out of this filtered energy back into the unfiltered energy. We have this recycling of the energy coming in and out of lives, in and out of the wheel, because the energy, the soul string, the thing that runs down through the middle of this, that is the same thing that ran through the middle of Jethri. The soul string has things it must accomplish. It is not a timed test. Okay? You are not given a lifetime and told you must do all these things. What you are given is an assignment. You must do all these things. Take all the time you want. Have as many lifetimes as you want to learn these lessons. But you will learn them. And when they're done, when they're finished, guess what? There's an exit to this place. That exit's out in front of me, and I'm approaching it with great excitement and vigor, because I've been and looked and peeked on what's on the other side. Nothing to be afraid of. I'm all about adventure now, and that's going to be a goodie, because that's going to be something doing it without this thing. This thing is really limiting. This thing and all the words that we tie to it, wow, we are so limited. There's an article roams around on Facebook. I've seen it. I don't recall where it's from, but it says the shaman's view, a shaman visits a mental hospital, a psychiatric hospital. And he had a completely, totally different view of what was going on inside those walls than the doctors and nurses and patients did. These people are disconnected from their source. These people have lost their joy. These people have forgotten to sing, dance, play. And what the hell does singing and dancing have to do with losing my mind in the mental hospital? From the old traditional shamanistic viewpoint, singing and dancing, highly honored traditions, because they induce trance, you see. They induce you into a trance. Trance is seeing something other than what's right in front of your eyes. Shamanism is getting that information, bringing it back, and using it in your life here, using it to help yourself or help anybody else. I'm still kind of fascinated by the fact that nobody has any questions here. I can understand. I can kind of understand. I'm beginning to develop this idea that why would we ask this lady questions? She is really out there. Well, yeah, I am. I'm really out there. But God, my life is just so joyful. My life is so balanced and easy. And I guess I figure all those things. From where I came from to now, the comparison is, I'll take this. I got here because of an understanding of the non-physical, of chakras, of shamanism, of journeying to other worlds, of traveling. It's real interesting if you think about this, and I'm going to go back to the example with Joe at the coast, looking out the window at the waves coming in and saying, well, that looks like something like the Grand Canyon. I can see a canyon there. I see a road. I see trees. His logical mind is telling him that's not there. And he's saying to me during this interlude, he's saying, what if you couldn't shut this off? Well, it can get quite distressing. He's like, but worse, if I couldn't shut it off, what if I couldn't shut it off and then I went down there to act on it? I went down there to, well, at one point he said, look, it's a beautiful golf course. Look, there's a river running through it. He said, what if I went down there to play golf? So you see, it's impractical if you want to stay connected in society to walk around in a state of trance all the time. People say either you're daydreaming, you're not paying attention, you're not listening to me. or you're just batshit crazy. Whoever you encounter and whatever level of acceptance they have, they'll determine how crazy you are based on how odd compared to them you are. So I hit the batshit crazy register regularly. It's kind of like that thing where you hit the hammer and the bell rings. Bell rings every time. I don't care. It works for me. If there's anything I can ever do for any of you to help you make this work for you, I'd be happy to do that. I am looking at putting my Buddhism class. The first one got canceled because nobody confirmed with me. See, we don't charge for any of these classes or events, and so sometimes I think that people think, well, it's just, show up if you want to or not. But I put all the work into doing this just as if we were charging you $200 to come into a class. So when no one confirms, I cancel the classes. That's not something I'm going to waste my energy on if no one is interested. If someone's interested, I do all sorts of groups and classes when people are interested and they respond and say, I'll take that, then I'm all about it. We do it. But sometimes I put stuff together and it doesn't really get any response, and I'm okay. I just say, it's not time for that right now. We'll do it later. Well, I'm thinking about perhaps in the spring I'll do the Buddhism class, and it's directly all related to chakras too. The Buddhist Eightfold Path matches exactly to 8 chakras. And they're all in order. I mean, it's not an accident. All these people had what looked like all different information all around the world. That was all the right information too. It doesn't have to look like my information to be correct. And if my information works for me, then it's correct. If my information works for you, wow, that's cool. Then it's correct for you too. But it's your information. You've taken it and you've made it yours. My information is just for me. That's the way it is. I've told you many times, we're here on a solitary journey. Joe puts it another way. He says you can't hire somebody to do your push-ups. In other words, somebody else can't give you the key to learning your lessons. They can help you or assist you or kind of guide you like you would a youngster when you're beginning. And I've made quite clear to you that you need to get this part stabilized before you have any concept of doing any of this up here. If you're sick and dying like I was, or you're in chronic pain, or you have so much energy going on down here to keep this thing just going, you don't have any energy for this up here. This up here takes an enormous amount of energy. The body kind of runs itself now. Mine does. And if you look at a chakra, my root chakra is down here, and it runs up into that point, just like I've told you. When I look down at mine now, sometimes I have to look carefully to see if they're still moving, because they're just so stable. The shape doesn't wobble, nothing, there's no hooks coming and going. It's just my rainbow swirling in perfect harmony. And of course, you only look down to here, because above that, you're not looking. I look from the crown down, I see the whole thing. But of course, Cookie, stop. But of course, to do that, I'm outside my physical body looking down. Come here. Stop your barking or come here. Excuse me just a second.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Joe just got home. Cookie heard him. I feel very safe now. My 5-pound dog let me know somebody was in the house. Okay. I think that's going to kind of wrap it up for today. I don't want to just be talking just to be talking. Nobody has any questions. I'm glad to have you all here. I did say in the beginning, and I'll reiterate that today, the purpose of this show is actually to answer questions, if anybody should have them, about the 2 workbooks that I wrote, Chakra Talk, a workbook for life 1 and 2. I'm out of them here at the house. I've sold them all, so I don't have one to show you. But they're available on Amazon. And if you have any questions from those, I will pop you right to the top of priority, and we will discuss it until you're satisfied with the answer, or until you unfriend me and go away. But that's not happening. So this is real interesting. So see, that's the way it happens sometimes. My idea is, I'm going to need to talk about this book. Well, they give me that idea. Of course, that's one of the things that drip down. And I went and run with that. But what's actually occurring is I'm sitting here every day and I'm telling you my story. scattered as it is. I'm telling it to you day after day. And it has nothing to do with those books. So anyway, if there's anything at all I can do to help any of you and assist you, that is my mission here till I get finished and go away, until I leave the body and don't come back to it. Okay, guys, I'm going to leave. Please consider what I've said. Take a look. If you're doing anything that ends in ism, Buddhism, shamanism, racism, okay, if you're living your life in some of those, take a close look at it and see if it's still serving you. And it may be doing a beautiful job for you, but you might find it's not. And if you don't, then know that you have absolutely every ability to go and look into all sorts of other things. Next time you're daydreaming, cloud gazing, and you see something wonderful, come back to this and say, oh, trance. I'm in a trance. And realize that's how easy it is. Daydreaming is a state of trance. If you can take a state of trance and get information from non-physical and bring it back here and use it in your physical life, you are practicing shamanism. Okay, guys, I'm going to go. Have a wonderful day.